Hi everyone, welcome to Type Talks. Today I'm here with Boris, and we're here to discuss NTs and their relationship with agency. And so the NT types, otherwise known as rationals by Kiersey, they're known as pragmatic types. And so we'll be talking about a facet of what it's like to be pragmatic. There's a lot of ENTPs, ENTJs, and INTJs who really stress agency, independence, autonomy. And they have philosophies around it too, very often. So Boris is an example of that. And so he's here to share his thoughts on agency and how it relates to him. So
I
welcome.
thought he wanted to know my feelings about it, but I guess I could go into thoughts. Yeah, for me, I mean, I don't know if it's personal, but I suspect it's probably baked in the type. For me, agency is fairly important, and I would define agency as it's somewhat related to competence that I appreciate. It's the ability of affecting things around me that are of interest to me, that I care about. As Joyce suggested, it's probably, I would say it's shared across different NT types. I could see there being maybe two groupings, like I think the ENTJ and INTJ, for them, it might come from a slightly different angle because they're the ones who have plans, who have to get stuff done. So I could see they appreciate agency. I do to some extent, but for me, it might be potentially more of a flavor of choice. Like if I cannot act on the world and shape it in my way, that means I have no choice. I'm all of a sudden at the mercy of whatever's happening out there, and that is distressing and goes against my desires. So I'm just throwing that in there. There might be sort of variance within the types. And then the INTP might be, they may have the same, but as a type, they're probably less active in engaging the world. So they may also appreciate agency, but it's just not as forceful, would be my guess. But yeah, and maybe Joyce, I don't want to make this a monologue because you're the expert. What do you think or feel?
Yeah, I think one of the ways that NTs get agency in their lives is through mastery. So whether it's mastering a skill, a piece of knowledge, to be able to gain control of an area of your life, to gain agency over a certain area. So like an ENTJ wants to figure out, let's say, the formula of how to do something so that they feel like they have more agency in the situation. A really good example of this is Alex Hermosi. I hope I'm saying his name right. He's a very clear ENTJ, and NTs have this thing where they have a mind meld at times. So like this ENTJ guy who has never met Boris before says the same line that Boris says. And it's,
So,
I'd rather be hated for
good
who
luck. No, what do they say? I'm just curious. What is the line?
yeah, it's like, I'd rather be hated for who I am than loved for who I am not. And there's just some element of agency even there, because it's like, I know that the thing that I have agency over is myself. So I might as well be appreciated for that. I want to. I hope that seems like a bit of a stretch, but there is some sort of overlap.
There's definitely a tangent you can throw and it touches that circle, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
So
It could also be the 8 in your tri-type too, Boris, where there is some desire for 8s to be themselves. And so they're like, I'd rather be myself than to be liked for something other than me. So could be an Enneagram similarity there. So today we're talking about shared characteristic between NTs. So I thought I would also mention that too. There's that element of eventually finding it rational to not care what other people think, because it makes the most sense to not think that way, in a sense.
that triggered me, and just well, not triggered, but the famous Feynman book is called "What Do You Care What Other People Think," by Richard Feynman, right? That was sort of kind of, I think it's along the same lines. He's presumed to be ENTP, and I would say he probably is. So I see some overlap there. And yeah, and the thing when you said getting good at a skill, for me, that really maps into competence, right? Because as an ENTP, I like competence, possibly along a broad spectrum, but almost like a generic competence where in order to be comfortable in the world, I have to trust myself. I have some base skills that I've developed. I have a lot of flexibility that I trust to kick in when the doo-doo hits the fan, but it's sort of something that I would need to have that agency, right? And that freedom, because I think that freedom kind of plays in there. I can choose outcomes. I can shape outcomes. I'm not at the mercy of some trajectory where I can't move, right? That would be my hell. So
yeah, you always want a little bit of wiggle room, because you mentioned a physics experiment where if you wiggle, I think, a rock 50 times, you can move it. Or I know that you know this experiment way better than I do, so perhaps you can share about it.
wiggle, it's just an idea that's something people don't know. Let's say you might have this monstrous, let's say it's an iron rock, and if you have like a magnet on a string, you can throw at the rock and then pull, and there'll be a little bit of tug on it. If you repeat that in the right frequency, you can actually get that thing to swing, even though all you do is it's like one little nudge by exploiting a little bit of pull that adds up, right? And I do like the wiggle room. Like for me, it's the thing about being trapped, which might be 7, 8 plays in there as well. I do need to know I have options. Enneagram, yeah. So of course the Enneagram 7 and 8. It's having wiggle room, knowing like even how I think ENTPs at some level are sort of contingency planners. We don't plan exactly the way an NTJ does. I think I look at something, I want to see the worst thing there is, but then I just want to look at it saying, could I handle that? And then I'm like, well, I could do this, I could do that. I can free-form a couple of strategies that give me a hopefully not false sense of potential control or agency should crap happen. And then I always trust, hey, I'm good in the moment. I'm good at responding to stuff, but I have these pre-formed strategies that I could flesh out in case of emergency.
Yeah, this all takes us back to the concept of agency. Mm-hmm. So an ENTP is going to possibly look at a contingency plan to gain agency over their lives. And so you even see this element of agency and independence in a lot of NTs' dating philosophies. So like a lot of NTs talk about how when they date someone, they want both the people to be whole people who are dating each other. So they're not necessarily merging in any way. Whenever I say the word merge in a romantic context to any NT, I've only gotten like reactions.
It's like, unsecure attachment style, codependence. I mean, I'm just going along with what you're saying, but that is an easy jump to make, right?
Yeah. And I even think it may not be attachment related too, because I know NTs who are anxiously attached to, and they don't like the word merge either. And it's something about like, it's something that goes against some sort of independence need inside their brains too, because you're securely attached and you don't have this, like the word merge doesn't really click as well too. So when it comes to NTs, when they're partnered with people, they almost want to see that partner like it's two parallel lines, two people on their own life journey walking together in a way, but like it's not that you're merging, but you're an independent whole person and they're an independent whole person, and you guys are growing and choosing to stay with each other in that sense. And like a lot of these NT types have a lot of shared commonalities on top of agency. Like let's say the way that NTs typically start to believe in woo-woo things is that there's usually a physics concept or some sort of science that they can ground themselves in that makes it make more sense. So
they have to dress it in pseudoscience, but it has to sound like a science. Thank God I don't have that problem. Sure.
Well, there is one that like you talk about Richard Feynman, and he talks about how you can travel backwards in time or forwards in time or something along the lines of that. And it makes you believe in something, and I just forgot what exactly it was tied to.
I don't know the specific reference, but it's actually part of a theory. It is a requirement of Feynman diagrams to allow for that. Now, whether that's true or not, or it's just a mathematical construct, I think you're referring to something that I'm not fully catching on to, probably.
Yeah, right? Yeah. So to ground it in like a case study, Boris will have certain beliefs where he kind of sees the beauty and awe and wonder in the universe, but it's more from a perspective of everything ends, everything dies. So like even black holes die, or the sun, like the Earth is going to collide into the sun, and then the sun is going to die, and then the universe itself will die. It has an expiration date too.
It may or may not. It's not so much a focus on death, because that's an NI thing, trying to impose a finality on it. I think it's embracing the persistence of change. right? And there could be, and anything for that to be changed, some things may end for other things to start, right? Like you could say if something falls into a black hole, that thing ends for a gazillion, quadrillion, blah, 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 bunch of zeros years. But then there's something called Hawking radiation, which says, well, in a billion, trillion, quadrillion years, whatever it is, this massive black hole that's like a billion suns will evaporate one little virtual particle, boop, at a time. And it's going to take eons, but it's not forever. So it's like things end in the black hole, but did they end? No. And eventually the black hole itself will evaporate. And then there's all these theories where it might be pretty dismal. There's something called I think it's the temperature death of the universe, but that's all theory. But it is sort of nice to muse about. And this might be another tangent, is sometimes when people are tied up in their current temporary misery, something horrible happened in my life or your life or somebody's life, I get some solace by stepping away and then just reflecting on these long-term thingies, like, what am I fussing about? The thing I'm looking at right now, like the curtain behind me, that will be swallowed by the sun at some point in time. It's just unconceivable, but that's kind of a given. That's going to happen, right? But it sort of keeps you in awe in the moment and saying, but there's so many moments before that. And even that will change. So I think NE likes the novelty. There will be something else that's new, that's different. That is a slight tangent to the agency. But for me, I think for an NTP, the agency is slightly different flavored than for an NTJ, I believe. Because for me, the agency is freedom too. For them, it's power to channel something into a goal. So they're similar, but not the same, I would guess, right? And INTPs are just less forcefully engaged with externals. That would be my guess, right? So
yeah, and to wrap it all together, the whole talk on the sun and the black holes evaporating eventually, that philosophy of change gives you a sense of agency over your life too. So
because it's not a trap, right? I'm not trapped.
Yeah, true.
And this is a side tangent, but it relates to the agency and also something about wording. People use the word helpless, right? And helpless, there's even the term learned helplessness. I don't hate it, but I have an issue with it. But it stems from wanting to having agency. I'm saying, if you look at the word helpless literally, it means without help. That's not a great scenario to be in. You might be alone. You have nobody or nothing to rely on. But you know what? If you have agency, it's okay to be helpless at the moment because you can still pull through because you have agency, even though you have no external help, right?
Yeah.
So
you can be void of others helping you, but you can be the one to help yourself. I have a very close INTJ friend, and she talks about how life is a combination of two things, choice and chance, and that's within your control to control the choices you make. So it's also an agency belief that she has. So
sounds like the serenity prayer. May I have the knowledge to know which things I can change, which ones I can't. But I believe there's shit that I can change. Otherwise, well, this would be a miserable existence.
Exactly. Yeah. So hopefully that was interesting to you audience members. Maybe it inspired some sense of agency in your life too. So yeah, thanks everyone for watching. We'll see you
and
all.
maybe the INTPs can say, hey dude, we felt like you threw us under the bus. I mean, we have agency. Because I made them a bit of an outlier, maybe somebody who's INTP wants to comment and chop up that ENTP for his audacious, poorly thought out statement.
Yes. INTPs, you have the agency to chop out Boris if you want. So, all right. So,
bring on.
Thanks everyone for watching.
Thank you.
See you all in the next episode.